If you think back, 2024 was really the year AI just went completely mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
But the period we're looking at now, so late 2025 into early 2026, that's when things got complicated.
That's when the growth story became a conflict story.
Exactly. We saw this, unprecedented level of investment, but it was met head on with some really fierce resistance.
Right. You had regulatory crackdowns, infrastructural bottlenecks, and this massive populist backlash.
And that's the core tension we really want to unpack for you today.
Yeah, the sources you shared, they paint this picture of technology just moving way too fast, faster than the world is, physically, legally, or politically ready to absorb it.
So our mission for this deep dive is to synthesize all of this.
We've got everything from these existential safety debates to major legal challenges for giants like Meta and OpenAI.
And then right down to the nitty-gritty, like the hardware wars and how AI is quietly, getting into our public rail networks.
We're looking for those specific nuggets that really define this chaotic moment.
Okay, so let's start with the engine itself. The sheer physical demand of AI, the hardware, the power. It's creating that first, most immediate conflict.
The chips.
The chips. Let's look under the hood. The biggest news shows that even a giant like Nvidia is feeling the pressure to adapt. Let's talk about Groq.
This non-exclusive licensing agreement, it's more than just a collaboration.
Right.
It's really Nvidia strategically buying insurance against a potential technological shift.
Because they built their empire on the GPU, the graphics processing unit. That's the standard.
It is the standard. But Groq, they came up with something different, the LPU.
The language processing unit. And the claims for this LPU are, they're pretty significant.
Oh, absolutely. They're saying it can run large language models 10 times faster.
But for me, the headline stat is the energy consumption.
1/10 the power.
One.
And that energy efficiency, that is the existential threat to the current GPU model. So this deal for NVIDIA, it's an acknowledgement that, their architecture might not be the best for a future of purely language-based AI.
And they didn't just get the tech, they got the talent.
Crucially, yeah. They hired the Groq founder, Jonathan Ross.
Who has some serious pedigree. He's the guy who helped develop the TPU, the tensor processing unit, back when he was at Google.
That's him. So bringing in the person who invented the TPU and now the LPU, that's a clear talent grab. It keeps that expertise away from rivals like Google or Amazon.
So even though NVIDIA is calling it a licensing arrangement, not a full acquisition.
The rumors of a $20 billion valuation for the asset acquisition, well, that tells you everything you need to know about the perceived value here.
Speed and low energy costs, that's the new currency.
And that focus on energy, it brings us right to the next front in this conflict, the infrastructure.
Which is arguably even more volatile. The financial scale is it's staggering.
Yeah.
Construction spending on data centers has skyrocketed 331% since 2021. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars.
And that's what's forcing this invisible tech out of the cloud and, straight into people's backyards.
Which is where the populist uprising starts.
It really is. Data Center Watch says they're tracking 142 activist groups in 24 states, all organizing to block these things.
And this isn't just the usual not in my backyard and IMBY thing, is it?
No, it's different. It's because the impact is so immediate and it's financial. It hits the wallet.
So what's the core complaint then?
Well, activists cite environmental concerns, health impacts, all of that. But the sharpest complaint, the one with the most political traction, is that these massive energy-hungry data centers are directly driving up local electricity bills.
Which you feel every single month.
Every month. And that shifts it from a local issue to potentially a national political crisis if voters start connecting AI with their rising utility bills.
This is the brief on the premium content available from AI Now. Hey, so if you're enjoying what you hear on our daily show, right? Well, this premium stuff, it's basically your fast track. We're talking about taking all that AI knowledge and actually using it, like right away, moving you from just knowing things to really doing things with AI. Okay, so first up, the big thing is efficiency. You know how fast AI moves? It's crazy. Staying updated is tough. So what we do is cut through all that noise. We distill the really important trends, the tools, the strategies, give them to you straight, all actionable insights. It keeps you ahead without wasting any time. Second, what do you actually get? Well, for just $4.99 a month, yeah, less than a fancy coffee, you unlock a bunch of exclusive series you won't hear on The Daily Show. There's weekly deep dives with AI Now Educate, practical stuff on tools and business strats with AI Now Commercial, and even deeper analysis and frameworks in AI Now Conceptual. It's the whole package. And finally, we made it super easy and low risk to jump in. Seriously, it's totally beginner-friendly. Alex and Jessica, you know them, they break down even the tricky stuff. Plus, you can give it a whirl for 30 days, grab those strategies, and if it's not for you, cancel anytime, no problem. Easy peasy. Bottom line, AI Now Premium gives you that complete, up-to-date knowledge and the practical strategies you need to really get a handle on this fast-changing AI world.
It becomes a huge issue for the 2026 midterms.
And we're already seeing it. You've got protesters in Michigan, you have locals in Wisconsin who managed to dissuade Microsoft from a huge 244-acre project.
Wow.
The sources claim that $64 billion worth of developments have already been blocked or delayed by this.
$64 billion. That is a staggering price for corporations to pay. How's the industry responding?
They're fighting back hard. The trade group, NAIA, is distributing talking points, organizing field trips to the data center.
Trying to demystify them.
Right, and companies like Meta are running big ad campaigns, promoting the economic benefits. But the real fight is happening in town halls, not Silicon Valley.
So that physical grassroots backlash is now being mirrored in the legal system. Let's shift from the data center floor to the courtroom.
The Copyright Office.
Yeah, we're seeing this new, very specific wave of copyright conflict hitting big AI.
And this new lawsuit is critical because it's trying to stop the AI companies from just, buying their way out of accountability.
And it was filed by a new group of writers, including a pretty big name.
John Carreyrou, the author of Bad Blood.
Right. And they're targeting all the big players. Anthropic, Google, OpenAI, Meta.
XAI, Perplexity, the whole lineup. And the accusation is the same. Training models on pirated copies of their books.
So what makes this suit different from the last one?
They are explicitly saying they're dissatisfied with the previous settlements, like the Anthropic class action.
That one offered writers, what, about $3,000?
About $3,000.
For your life's work being used to generate billions in corporate revenue. I can see why they'd feel that's an insult.
They do. They argue it allowed AI companies to, and this is a quote, extinguish thousands upon thousands of high-value claims at bargain basement rates.
So they feel the previous resolutions just served the AI companies, not the creators.
Exactly. They made the legal cost of infringement basically negligible.
Okay, so the fight isn't just about past data. It's also about future dominance. We're seeing regulators step in.
Especially in Europe. The Meta and WhatsApp case in Italy is a perfect example.
What happened there?
So the Italian Competition Authority, the AGCM, they stepped in. They ordered Meta to immediately suspend its policy that was banning rival AI chatbots.
Like from OpenAI or Perplexity?
So I'm using the WhatsApp Business API.
So Meta was basically using its dominance in messaging with WhatsApp to corner the AI market for its own chatbot.
That is exactly how the regulator sees it.
Yeah.
The AGCM said Meta's conduct is an abuse of its dominant position. It limits production, limits technical development, and causes, quote, serious and irreparable harm to competition.
And it wasn't just Italy, right? The European Commission got involved too.
Correct. And when the EU Commission steps in, it's being treated as a major strategic move by Meta to build basically a regulatory walled garden.
And what's Meta's defense?
They're saying the API is for customer service, not a de facto app store for general purpose AIs. But, European regulators clearly aren't buying it.
Okay, let's shift from these current legal battles to how the giants are preparing for the future and the risks they know are coming. OpenAI. Despite this breakneck pace, they seem to be doubling down on internal safety. They're looking for a new head of preparedness.
That title alone, head of preparedness, it speaks volumes. CEO Sam Altman admitted their models are presenting real challenges.
What kind of challenges?
He specifically mentioned finding critical computer security vulnerabilities and, interestingly, the potential impact on mental health.
So this role is not theoretical. It's about preparing for frontier capabilities that could create, severe harm.
Everything from advanced phishing to nuclear threats to, the big one, algorithmic self-improvement.
And the mental health angle is getting a lot of scrutiny.
It is. There are lawsuits alleging ChatGPT reinforced illusions, increased social isolation, even led to suicide. It shows the risk profile for this tech is now deeply personal.
And yet, even their safety policy seems to be shaped by the competition.
This is a fascinating detail. OpenAI updated its framework to say it might adjust its safety requirements if a competitor releases a high-risk model without similar protections.
So they're saying we can't afford to be the safest if it means falling too far behind.
Pretty much. It just shows how hard it is to regulate yourself in this kind of hyper-competitive environment.
Okay, let's pull back and look at the broader forecast for 2026. What are the big predictions?
The consensus from sources like TechCrunch Equity points to a couple of things. First, AI agents, the software that does complex tasks for you. They're finally going to live up to the hype in 2026.
After a bit of a letdown in 2025.
Exactly. And second, the big conceptual shift is away from LLMs and toward world models.
World models. Can you define that for us?
So an LLM is basically a text prediction engine. It's brilliant with language. A world model is a step change. It's an AI that builds an internal simulation and understanding of the world it operates in.
So it can reason and plan, not just predict the next word.
Far more robustly. That's seen as the next major phase.
And the market itself is expected to change. I'm hearing about the death of stealth mode for AI startups.
Yeah, that's a direct result of the huge amounts of capital needed. You have to be public-facing to get that funding. So the days of building in a basement are pretty much over.
Which plays right into the speculation about the biggest IPOs.
Yeah.
Are OpenAI and Anthropic finally going public in 2026?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question. The VCs certainly need the exit, and it would inject a lot of liquidity into the market.
Any other quick-fire predictions?
A few fun ones. Hollywood is predicted to push back hard against AI-generated content.
Harder than the strikes.
Much harder. Also, the possible return of dumb phones as a sort of digital detox movement. And, my favorite, everyone will start calling themselves AI native.
Of course they will. And there was one more. A predicted public breakup between Johnny Ive and Sam Altman.
Right. A little bit of drama. It just shows that this whole revolution is still driven by personality and conflict.
Okay, so we've covered the infrastructure battles, the legal wars. But AI is also quietly integrating itself as the operating system for huge public services.
Totally unseen by the average person.
Let's talk about rail transport.
Yeah, this is profound. There's a UK report aiming to carry an extra billion journeys by the mid-2030s, mostly through AI optimization.
And the key shift is from reactive maintenance to
predictive maintenance.
So no more waiting for an engineer to walk the track and spot a crack.
Exactly. You use sensors, LiDAR, imaging, all fed into machine learning models to forecast failures months ahead of time. You go from find and fix to predict and prevent.
Which has to be a massive economic boon.
It is. And beyond that, you have AI traffic management using live data trained positions, weather to adjust the flow across the whole network.
So you can increase capacity without laying new track.
Precisely. And you get energy savings too. Algorithms telling drivers the best way to accelerate and brake could save, they think, 10 to 15% in energy.
Plus safety benefits like obstacle detection, crowd monitoring.
Yeah, like the system at London Waterloo to prevent overcrowding. The only real risk is cybersecurity, as all these old legacy systems start talking to modern IT.
All right, let's go from massive public infrastructure to personal infrastructure. Robotaxi.
Waymo.
Waymo is testing Google's Gemini as an in-car assistant. And we got this amazing look at its blueprint, the Waymo Ride Assistant meta prompt.
A 1,200-line document. It's basically the AI's personality rules. And it's a masterpiece of corporate liability management.
How so?
The bot is strictly defined. It's a friendly, helpful companion, safe, reassuring, unobtrusive. It has to use clear, simple language, and its responses are limited to 1 to 3 sentences.
They're engineering out any chance of it going off on a tangent.
Completely. It sounds like they're terrified of it getting too conversational.
So we know it can do basic things like climate, music. What can it absolutely not do?
It can't touch anything critical. No volume control, no route changes, no windows, no seat adjustments. And crucially, it can't order food or handle emergencies.
They're maintaining a very clear boundary.
A very clear boundary between assistance and actual control.
And here's the most vital instruction in that whole document, which speaks to the theme of this entire deep dive.
Go on.
The bot has to maintain a clear distinction between itself, Gemini, the AI assistant, and the autonomous driving tech, which it has to call the Waymo driver.
That distinction is everything. It's about safety, it's about liability, it's about consumer trust. The bot is explicitly told to deflect questions about real-time driving actions.
And it can't sound defensive or apologetic about what the Waymo driver does.
Never. It's a highly contained, pragmatic model, which is a sharp contrast to, say, Tesla's Groq, which is pitched as this casual, in-car buddy.
Waymo is choosing liability containment over casual conversation. It's that theme again, defining strict boundaries.
Whether it's legally in Europe, physically in Michigan, or right there in the code of a robotaxi.
So what's the single biggest takeaway for you, the listener, as we wrap up? This period, late 2025 into 2026, was when AI stopped being just an invisible background technology.
Right.
It became this highly visible, controversial, deeply scrutinized public utility. And that triggered conflict everywhere, from the energy grid to the Copyright Office.
And that conflict is what's shaping the future. The pressure from authors, from regulators like the AGCM, and especially from local activists worried about their utility bills.
It's forcing these giants, OpenAI, Meta, to react, to define their limits, to formalize their safety boundaries.
All while the foundational infrastructure, the LPUs and the data centers, just keeps expanding exponentially.
So the integration of AI into everything, from rail systems to robo-taxis, shows this massive commitment to scale that is just colliding directly with public perception.
Yeah.
Which leads to our final thought. If the biggest challenge for the next few years isn't technological innovation, but managing this massive backlash and the political fallout of rising electricity costs,
Yeah.
how much will the public and Congress be willing to pay for the AI-native future being built?
That's the real cost we have yet to calculate. Something to mull over until our next deep dive.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. If you've liked what you've heard from us so far, getting these insights. Well, we found this really interesting source this week.
Yeah, a memo, wasn't it? Called The Fast Track to AI Mastery.
Exactly. And what really jumped out at me was how they framed the problem.
Yeah.
It's the sheer speed. They literally say AI is evolving at lightning speed.
Right. And their whole pitch, really, is offering this structured way to keep up, to actually leverage it, not just read about it.
So it's not just about random articles or blog posts, which, let's be honest, can be overwhelming.
Definitely. They're arguing for something more deliberate, a system. It seems like this premium content they describe is built around that idea.
Yeah. And if you feel what you've learned so far is beneficial, this sounds like the next step. They talk about this premium access. What is it, like $4.99 a month?
Something like that, yeah. Less than a coffee, basically. And it unlocks 4 specific content streams.
Okay, so what are they?
Well, you've got your weekly and monthly summaries, just keeping you current. Then there's specific educational stuff. They call it AI Now Educate.
Right, for the deeper understanding.
Exactly. Then updates on the latest commercial tools and strategies, really practical stuff. And finally, the heavier part, these conceptual deep dives and frameworks.
That last one sounds potentially a bit much, especially if you're, say, a beginner or just moderately into AI.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But that's where their guarantee comes in, apparently. The source memo is pretty clear on this.
How so?
They promise it's all absolutely beginner-friendly. They take complex ideas like the difference between fine-tuning and using a RAG system, right?
Okay, yeah.
And they break it down. They use analogies, real-world examples. The goal isn't just knowing the term. It's understanding why it matters, how you could, actually use it.
So it's application-focused. Less textbook, more toolkit.
Precisely. It shifts the focus from just knowing about AI to actually building strategies you can apply. The source really emphasizes that gaining stuff you can use at work or, just in your life generally.
It sounds like a curated path then, avoiding the information overload we were talking about.
That seems to be the core value proposition, yeah. For that small monthly fee, you get this distilled high-impact knowledge, structured learning.
So for you, the listener, it means getting past the jargon, getting actionable insights, and basically staying ahead without drowning in information. And they mention you can try for 30 days, cancel anytime. Risk-free, essentially.
Right. It makes you think, doesn't it? In a field moving this fast, maybe relying only on scattered free stuff isn't enough anymore to really get ahead.
That's a really interesting point.
Maybe this kind of focused, structured learning isn't just helpful. Maybe it's becoming essential. The source definitely leans that way. It argues the value of organization really outweighs that minimal cost.